getting this award, on behalf of all my human rights defenders out there in the world. And so my one message to Chinese government is, I think what Chinese government doing to Tibetan people is a cultural genocide. And they need to know that Tibet belongs to Tibetan people. And, we are going to do whatever we can to, change that. And we're going to do whatever we can to stand up for innocent Tibetan people. Whenever I sit down and have a conversation with His Holiness Dalai Lama, one thing he told me that really inspired me and said, whatever happens in life, always stand up for the right things and for the truth and for freedom and human rights. And that is what I have been trying to do. If every world leader listens the beautiful message of His Holiness Dalai Lama, we will have no war in our world right now. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Zumratai Ergin, and I'm honored to be here at the 14th Geneva Summit for Human Rights and Democracy to present the 2022 Courage Award. This year, 25 human rights groups that co-sponsored the Geneva Summit have chosen to recognize the outstanding contributions of Enes Kanter Freedom. Enes Kanter Freedom is a former NBA player, a Nobel Prize nominee, a champion of human rights who has been outspoken on rights issues around the world, and specifically on abuses happening in East Turkestan, Tibet, Hong Kong, and mainland China. He has been a strong voice. In the current environment, when giant corporations and entities are being intimidated and silenced by authoritarian governments such as China, Enes Kanter Freedom has decided to stand against this form of censorship and retaliation and speak out against human rights abuses and companies and others' complicity in them. It is truly inspiring to see an individual with great reach use his platform to fight for justice, human rights, and defend human values. And Mr. Freedom has done so with pride and passion. His work and the work of human rights defenders in this room and around the world are essential for our collective efforts to sustain peace, justice, and accountability for human rights for all. Often, this work comes at a high price. Some sacrifice their families, and others, like Mr. Freedom, sacrifice their careers. The NBA has made a strategic effort to push him out of the league because of his activism. Yet, despite this, these courageous individuals remain committed to shining a light on the dark issues around the world, to give a voice to the voiceless. We all have a responsibility to stand up in front of injustice because the decisions that we make today have an impact on the future. Mr. Freedom, today you join a prestigious list of human rights heroes, and I congratulate you. The international community and my own community, the Uyghur community, thank you for your efforts to promote and defend human rights for all. Thank you for your key role in advancing peace, justice, and human dignity in these dark times. On behalf of the Geneva Summit for Human Rights and Democracy, I am proud to present you with the 2022 Courage Award. Mr. Freedom, please come forward to accept your award.
So, Enes, before we start, I have a question that was triggered by Bobby's performance. I've seen you play basketball. I've seen you fight for human rights. I saw you in Congress with politicians. My first question would be, though, can you sing as well as Bobby?
I don't think you guys want me to hear me sing. I'm horrible at it. So I'm going to just stick to playing basketball.
Let's start with basketball. Like on February 8th, you were at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, crushing my home team with the Brooklyn Nets. You scored kind of a magnificent three-point basket, which to that day is your last basket in the NBA. Your teammates at the time were Robert, Jalen, Dennis, Al, Romeo. 2 months later, you met the Dalai Lama. You went to Congress several times, and your new teammates are Zarifa, Leonid, Olga, Berta, Bobby. What does it mean for you and many others who shared their courageous stories today? So what does it mean for you to win that award here at the Geneva Summit and be among them?
First of all, thank you guys for inviting me. I'm honored and humbled to be here. You know, today's a very special day because this is actually my first time leaving the United States. The reason is I've been following what Geneva Summit is doing over the years, and I was so inspired the work that they have done. And so Turkish government revoked my passport and put my name on Interpol list, and I have 10 arrests warning for me less than 4 years. And when I had a conversation with many of my people, they told me not to take any risks and travel outside of America. But I wanted to come here, and I wanted to be part of this beautiful event because I think before everything, I wanted to come here and educate myself. I have seen so many champions, so many, heroes that inspires me. So when I go back home, I can inspire and I can also educate the friends around me, my teammates and my athlete colleagues. So today was definitely a special day. And like you said, 2 months ago, I was with Boston Celtics with NBA. We never won a championship. But I believe with my new team here, with my new heroes, new champions, we can definitely win a championship because they are fearless. All the dictators out there should better be scared because this team we're going to crush them. So
it looks like it. Yesterday after the panel at the UN, when you stepped out, you were talking to some of the panelists, and you told some of them, "Thank you, I learned a lot today." And so what did you learn talking to them, talking to all these activists that you met here in Geneva?
I feel like I was already in touch with some of the activists here, but I think what I learned that day is a very simple line: live for others. There are so many people here sacrifice so much. Some people sacrifice their family, some people sacrifice their career and a lot of money and businesses, but stand up for something better and something bigger. And I think all the connections we are going to, create is going to be effective in our world. And I think that's what the dictators are afraid the most. Because we are from different, countries, we are from different colors and different regions and different religions, but I feel like we need to fight as one. I was just hearing the whole speech, all day. A lot of people are struggling because of obviously the dictatorships out there, but I feel like we need to unite and fight as one.
Talking about sacrifice, you left your family at a very young age to play basketball in the US. So your life, tell us about your journey, because you made the ultimate sacrifice, as a teenager to be without your family, to play basketball, and now your activism kind of seems to have at least put an end to your career.
My whole life was all about basketball, and I came to I went to America when I was 17 years old because of education and also played basketball at the same time because my dad was a genetic professor, and I asked him if I can start playing basketball, and he made me promise one thing. He said, I want you to be a good student for when I'm a good basketball player, because you're only going to play basketball for maybe like 10, 15 years, then you have a long life ahead of you. So that was the reason I traveled to America, go to school and play basketball at the same time. And then I went to high school, and I went to prep school, and then I went to college. Then I got drafted in 2011 by Utah Jazz. My first 2 years in the league, all I cared about was playing basketball, have fun with my teammates, and just go around and just chill, But then, 2013, there was a corruption scandal happening in Turkey. And President Erdogan and his family was involved in it. And after that corruption scandal, President Erdogan started to put innocent people in jail. Journalists in jail, activists in jail. And he was started to go around and shutting down media outlets. And I was like, I don't care who you are. If you're going to fight against, free press, I'm going to say something. So I just put a tweet out there, very simple tweet. And because of the NBA platform, it became a conversation. And then I was like, even one simple tweet can affect this much. From now on, I'm going to, pay attention about what's going on in my country more and more. And I started to study. And obviously, because of the platform, a lot of the big news outlets and newspapers started to give me a platform. And I did start to talk about a lot of stuff, but it affected me and my family. My dad was a genetic professor. He got fired from his job. My sister went to medical school for 6 years. She still can't find a job. I think the saddest one was my little brother, because he was playing basketball and he wanted to be like his big brother and play in the NBA one day. He was literally getting kicked out of every team. And he was so young, I couldn't explain him why, And so they were getting affected so much, they had to put a statement out there and said, we are disowning our son. And they made it publicly. I remember going to a practice that day. It was one of the toughest days in my life. But then Turkish government didn't believe that. They came to my house in Turkey and they raided the whole house and they took every electronics away because they wanted to see if I'm still in contact with my family or not. They couldn't find no evidence, but then they took my dad in jail for a while, but we put so much pressure to Turkey, they had to let him go. But then, you guys know the story, so then they put my name on Interpol list and revoked my passport and tried to kidnap me actually in a couple of places. But that is my life story pretty much.
The first time we met, talking about your dad, the first time we met, I asked you, what triggered your activism, and you told me about a conversation you had with your parents, and when you told them you were going to speak out. And the one thing you said about your dad is that he remained silent when you told him you were going to speak out. Do you think he would be proud of you today?
I think, so my dad didn't want me to speak up in the beginning, but then, obviously, so there's no communication right now, because if I talk to them, they will be in jail. But I think today, if he sees me standing here, not just by myself, but with his, heroes, I think he will be very proud and happy.
In French, yeah. In French, there is a saying that says, "Nul n'est prophète en son pays." No man is a prophet in his own country. 3 weeks ago, I was in your own neighborhood of Kadıköy in Istanbul, and I noticed something very quickly there. You cannot say your name out loud.
I'm sure you guys watch Harry Potter, right? Think about Voldemort, he who should not be named, in a good way, not the bad guy, but the good guy. It's crazy how, all this, even my ex-teammates or, friends or like some of the other family members are scared to even say a name. That shows how much censorship, how much dictatorship, how much pressure they're seeing. And it's just unbelievable. I just laugh at it. I'm like, I could care less because I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but it's really sad to see.
Say your name. You changed your name recently to Freedom. How did that come about?
So the reason I wanted to change my name, I remember when I came to America back in 2009, one of my teammates actually criticized the American government. And I was really scared for him because I was like, dude, what are you doing? And he turned around and asked me, what happened? And I was like, then you might be in jail tomorrow. And he started to laugh and he's like, this is not Turkey, this is America. I didn't understand what he meant. So he tried to explain to me what freedom of speech means, freedom of press means, but I still couldn't get it because I never had that growing up. But the reason I wanted to make that word part of me and carry it everywhere I go and actually put that word behind my jersey is to inspire our young generation. I feel like if we want to have a better and brighter future, we have to change our mindset of our young generation, because I think it's really important to just inspire, especially if you're an athlete. You have a huge platform. I'm sure so many people here have TikToks and Instagrams and Twitters and Facebooks and Snapchats and many other handles, but they're following everything you're doing. So it is important to stand up for the right things. That was actually the one thing that made me so happy, because I was educated and inspiring all the sports world, especially the kids. So now whenever I hold a basketball camp, instead of asking me questions about basketball, they ask me questions about Tibet. They ask me questions about Venezuela or Cuba, or they ask me questions about Iran or what's happening with Hong Kong, So that actually really, really makes me happy, because now I know that they're studying.
Yeah, and the past few months you have had to expand your scope a lot, because when we met, right after we were traded, you said something. We met in a hotel room in DC the day before Valentine's Day, and you were there, and you said something striking. You said, I spoke about Turkey for the past 10 years, and nobody kind of cared. I speak about China about one day, and my phone was ringing every hour. How did that fight for China and the Uyghurs and Tibet come about?
Well, the reason I get into the China topic, because so the last 10 years I was so busy because my plate was full, because my family is in Turkey, right? And anyway, one day this past summer, I'm doing a basketball camp with kids. Anyway, we had an amazing basketball camp, and after the camp, kids were just coming and taking pictures one by one. Anyway, I took a picture with this kid, right? And then while I was taking a picture, his parents called in front of everybody. Literally, there was cameras, and there was kids and parents and media. And he said, how can you call yourself a human rights activist when your brothers and sisters are in East Turkestan in concentration camps right now, are getting tortured and raped every day? I'm taking a picture with the kid. I was so shocked. I'm like, oh my God. I turned around and I promise I'm gonna get back to you, right? That day I canceled everything. I went back to my hotel. I started to study about what Uyghurs are going through. While I was going, studying Uyghurs, and I am a big fan of, His Holiness Dalai Lama. So, and then I started to study about Tibet. Then other regions came. I already knew about Hong Kong because of 2 years ago, I'm sure you guys know, the general manager of one of the NBA teams that tweeted something, and it became a huge mess. Then I started to, study about Southern Mongolians and Taiwan, and I was really ashamed with myself. I was like, I cannot believe the last 10 years I was just only focused on one dictatorship. So that day I promised myself, whatever it takes, I'm going to speak up for those innocent people. Because there are human rights violations that are happening all over the world. And I feel like this platform is given me by God, and I need to use it for His cause, So, and then I talked. The craziest thing, so I'm sure you guys watched a lot of basketball. So I talked about Tibet. My first topic was Tibet before the game, right? And then in the first half, so in one half, there's 12 minutes, 2 quarters, there's 24 minutes. And at halftime, I went back to my locker. I looked at my phone. My manager texted me and said, every Celtics games are banned in China. I was like, oh my God. That clearly shows that how much they're scared of, a voice. And then my friend told me about Sam, said it's normal. I asked him, what do you mean? He said, do you know there's a cartoon called Winnie the Pooh? I'm sure you guys know. And that cartoon is banned in China. And I asked him, what do you mean? He's like, just because of the character of Winnie the Pooh looks like the dictator Xi Jinping, he literally banned the whole cartoon. I started to laugh. I'm like, this is just wild, you know? And I was like, oh, well, I guess they're not gonna, be watching any Celtics game in China this year.
You decided to speak through your feet, basically.
So I wanted to create these beautiful shoes, right? Because when I was a kid, I remember whenever I watched an NBA game, right? The first thing I was looking at in an NBA player was his shoes. What color it is, if they're comfortable, what brand, And I think my goal was to inspire our young generation, right? I'm like, I'm going to do it in a very unique way. I'm going to create these shoes where I'm going to put all these, human rights abuses and political prisoners on names and flags on my shoes and go out there and play. That is my freedom of speech. The crazy thing is, NBA came and told me right before the game, it was the first game, said, we are begging you to take your shoes off. I'm like, hold on a second, what do you mean? He said, you are getting a lot of attention, you have to take your shoes off. It was the perfect moment because I was getting actually ready for my citizenship test, American citizenship test. And I was like, there are 27 amendments, my First Amendment, freedom of speech. I turned around to that guy, I'm like, you cannot take that my First Amendment from me. I'm not taking it off, go tell your boss. Then, it became even bigger news. Then the second game we talk about the Uyghurs, the third game we talk about, we created shoes, and it was, I wish you guys can show it here, but like Winnie the Pooh. Then fourth game we talk about the Nike or the sweatshops. The fifth game we talk about Hong Kong and Taiwan, and we would just keep going. And every time now I go to an arena, and they're like, when are you going to start producing those shoes? So,
are you going to produce them?
I actually will. It's called a Freedom brand, so I'm excited.
I see. And so just about this, because I think it's an interesting, we were talking about teams in the beginning. So you teamed up with not anyone, you teamed up with some artists like, how did that come about? Like, did they reach out to you?
So we reached out to them because I wanted to do it in a very unique way where I can reach out to these artists where they've been oppressed by their governments because they know the best, So whenever I'm going to say to them, I'm going to talk about Hong Kong, right? I was reaching out to an artist who knows Hong Kong really well. Or the next game I was going to talk about Nicaragua. I was reaching out to an artist from Nicaragua, and she was helping me. And actually she's here. I don't know where she's at right now. Yep, she's right there. Miss Vale, But I think it was really important because to reaching out to those artists because, they were putting the best works out there.
I want to go back to February 8th and 10th because that kind of changed. There was a lot of discussion today about the price of activism. Yeah. The price you paid happened on February 10th. Can you tell us about that day and what you felt that day?
So, first time I started to talk about these issues, right? My first topic, like I said, was Tibet. And after the game, my agent called me and said, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I work for you, I don't work for NBA. He said, if you don't say a word ever again, people are probably going to forget about what you did in like 3-4 days. You can apologize, you can say sorry, you can just say I didn't know enough. Then people will forget about it, you'll be fine. But if you say another word, you're not going to be able to get another contract again. And I'm like, this is crazy because this is my freedom of speech. And you're telling me literally I'm going to be banned from the NBA just because I'm using my First Amendment. Anyway, I'm like, okay. Second game I started to talk. But I think my teammates were warning me. My teammates were definitely telling me that, listen, dude, this is your last year. Have fun. I hope you win a championship, but you're not getting another contract. Right? And February 10th came. And I remember it was like 3 p.m. Eastern time. And my agent called me and said they are pretty much like waiving you. And I was like, wow, they really did that. I cannot believe just because of China made a call to NBA to say, release this guy. and I was out of the league, like this.
And it's not any team that released you. That's not any team that released you. It's the Houston Rockets. That's a long history is China.
So Houston Rockets, right, known as China's team because of Yao Ming, because of how the general manager of Houston Rockets, Daryl Morey, tweeted about Hong Kong 2 years ago. It became a big mess for the NBA. Actually, not many people know this. I think that this is the first time I'm saying it here. When Daryl Morey tweeted about Hong Kong, I was playing for Boston Celtics. They made me media unavailable for 2 weeks. They did not let me speak to media for 2 weeks because they knew I could care less. I would just go out there and say whatever I want, So it was a shame. But I mean, now I'm out of that team. I can just speak freely. But yet, I was media unavailable for 2 weeks.
And what did you feel last week when you heard that public television in China is going to broadcast NBA games again?
So many people, obviously, many sports writers are, controlled by the NBA. We're saying that, oh, no, it's not China, he's just not good. By the way, I averaged double-double last year, and we made the playoffs. And
you should explain what a double-double is.
So, and they were saying, oh, no, it's not bad, it's basketball, right? So, as soon as, after, I think it was 4 weeks, I was out of the league, they put the game back on the Chinese television. I was like, at least wait for a year, at least wait for next season. Don't make it that obvious. It was just crazy to me. I was like, you're literally telling the whole world the why I am released.
So you mentioned your teammates. You talked about the price you paid. But why do you keep speaking up? You paid quite a price with not being able to see your family.
I think that's the one question that I get the most from, especially from my teammates. Are you crazy? That's been a question so many times. Because when it comes to Turkey issues, they say, well, your family's still back in Turkey and you're not even allowed to see or talk to them. You haven't seen them for 8 years. Your dad was in jail. When it comes to China, they're pretty much saying you lost your career. You get death threats every day. You have to be in touch with the FBI all the time. You're not even allowed to go anywhere freely. You have to go anywhere with security and stuff. Like, why? I mean, people need to understand, my family's only one. There are so many families in jails right now are suffering. I mean, now I listen to these people's stories. I'm like, if you carry in a heart, there's no way you can stay silent. It's a shame if you stay silent. And how are you gonna? The other thing is, I always ask this. When the Beijing Olympics were happening, right? I reach out to so many Olympians and so many of my teammates and so many athletes. I'm like, listen, this is an amazing opportunity to bring awareness. Let's boycott the Olympics. And then they put diplomatic boycotts. I think it's good, but not enough. But I asked them one question. If you're a mother, I ask that question to people a lot. If you're a mother, if you're a sister, if you're a wife, or if you're one of your family members, was in those concentration camps and getting tortured and raped every day, would you still remain silent? And unfortunately, not all answer.
Did anybody reach out to you from the basketball world after you lost your job?
Good question. Not even one. And I always looked at my team and my teammates as my brothers, as my family. And unfortunately, not even one of them reached out. But guess what? I found a new family. So. We got 4 minutes left. We're almost there, don't worry.
4 minutes left.
I see the timer here, so I'm like,
hey, let's talk about
change. Like they're drinking coffee, like drinking waters. We're almost done.
So let's talk about change, because you did not only average double-double, which, by the way, means that he had a double amount of
points and rebounds, yes.
Points and rebounds, so more than 10 rebounds and more than 10 points in a game, which is quite something. Who am I to say that? But anyway, talking about change, you were part of another team who managed to do something quite extraordinary in Washington, D.C., which is to pass the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act with like 428 votes to 1 in the House of Representatives. I mean, for people who don't know the U.S. government, this is quite something to do this. So
yes.
Tell us about this.
So we always say, don't just talk about it, be about it. If I come here and just give you guys like a 25-minute speech, right? And if I go home and start watching movies and not care about it, what I talk about, it's just not going to be effective. So we always say, don't just talk about it, be about it. So, by the way, I don't want to take credit because, you know, I did not do a lot in that bill. Well, I helped, but didn't do much. But for, you know, that bill, Uyghur bill, was so important because it's going to. So if you're a company, right? If you're using a slave labor, pretty much you're not allowed to step into America, and that is going to cost billions of dollars, with a B, of dollar to China and these companies who are using slave labor. So I was really happy about it. Actually, when we put that out there, a couple of the companies, like I believe Apple and especially Nike, was lobbying against this bill. But I was like, you know what, we're gonna crash it. I don't care how strong they are, I don't care how influential they are. We're gonna go out there and just, because this is the right thing to do.
What are you setting your sights on now? Is there another fight in Congress that you want to be part of?
I mean, there are so many bills now. I'm just keep hearing about, there's a Tibetan bills and there's Hong Kong bills and this. So there are so many other issues that are happening. Now I was listening to, my Afghan sister. So there are so many problems that are happening in our world, but I feel like, but people need to understand. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your skin color is, your religion, or your culture is. The most important in life is leave your differences on the table and trying to find what we have in common. Till one of those billionaires find another planet to live, this world is what we have. So we need to make this world better together, and we need to fight as one. So that's why I was so excited to be part of this beautiful event, because now I know what Afghanistan going through, Nicaragua is going through, Venezuela going through, Cuba or Iran or all the other countries, Tibetans or Hong Kongers are going through, Now I can help them and they can help me, I feel like we are a huge family and we need to, move as one, we need to fight as one. I think I heard that from a speech. If you're a boxer, you would notice, but if you punch someone like this, right, you will break your hand. Yeah. But if you come fight as one and punch them like this, then you're gonna break their jaw. So I feel like, all these activists, my friends and my heroes here, need to come as one and punch all the dictators out there in the face, and we'll destroy them.
Yeah. I have two more questions in the 30 seconds that we have left.
Stay with me, two more.
Two more, and they're like kind of deep. So like, do you feel free?
Do I feel free? Good question. I'm in America. I do live a good life. But till all my friends are free, I'm not free. Till Tibetans and His Holiness Dalai Lama, till all these political prisoners we talked about, till Ms. Valley's husband, till all this political prisoners, not just here but all around the world. There are so many other countries that are going through so much rough times, but till they've. Now, if I'm not free, and I will be, it doesn't matter if there is peace in my country, I will be, working with these people to fight for freedom and democracy.
For the last question, I'm going to quote Martin Luther. It's a name I can never say, I'm sorry. Martin Luther King Jr., he said, no matter who we are, or where we come from, we are all entitled to the basic human rights of clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and a healthy land to call home. So, what is home for you?
What is home for me? Good question. I think I don't know what is home for me, because my home country, Turkey, where I grew up, thinks that I'm a terrorist. because I spoke out against the issues there. But I think what's home, well, I'm born in Switzerland, by the way, so I can call Switzerland home maybe. But I think what's home for me is, I think that the world is our home. The world is our home. And when you step into your home, you always make sure it's clean, it's perfect, right? You always make sure that it's everything perfect. But I feel like we are the builders of our world. So that's why I think for me it was so important here. Now I see like in a backstage, I see so many young kids here, a young generation here. They are going to be our future, and I think we need to give this fight. I understand my heroes here are struggling a lot, and they're giving so much sacrifices. But I feel like we have to do this for young generation, because if we don't, then they're going to face the same problems we are facing right now. So we have to do this. I know it's a lot, but we have to, just fight for this oppressors, authoritarian regimes, and dictators around the world. And I think the fight will never stop till every dictator falls. And you look down the history, every dictatorship will fall at the end. But we just have to stay strong. I think the most importantly, to not lose hope.
That's the last word. Thank you. Wise words. Congratulations.
That was good, man. You did a good job. We gotta take it. Oh yeah, we have to take a picture. Come on.
The trophy.
Oh, the trophy?
I can take this.
Yeah, what? I'll let you hold the trophy. You sure?
Before you're leaving, put your headphones on. Sheila's talking to you.
All our speakers, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to come up on stage.
Okay, that's okay. Right. So you guys can come down now, and then
Ladies and gentlemen,
photo with everybody.
Let's give another round of applause for Enes Kanter Freedom.
So you can stay here. We'll have a photo with everybody. That was absolutely amazing. Better than your...
What an example for the world.
60 game against the Brazil.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been an intense, emotional, but important day. All of our speakers, yesterday at the UN and here today, have shared remarkable and inspiring stories to shine a light on human rights abuses and build pressure for change. For them, I know it means a lot. For all of us, listening to their testimonies is necessary, but it is not sufficient. Our responsibility is to ensure that those who are oppressed, those who have risked everything to speak out and tell the truth from the prison cells of Havana, Harare, or Hong Kong, know that they are not alone. Our responsibility is to raise global awareness, to ensure that this translates into change on the ground, including by the release of political prisoners. And so while we thank all of you for joining us at the 2022 Geneva Summit, our responsibility is to ensure that the fight for basic human rights is a constant year-round commitment. Let us not forget that in just 2 months, across the street, nations will assemble for the UN Rights Council. Our responsibility is to ensure that the appalling situations that we've learned about here are put squarely on the UN agenda. One powerful way to help is by expanding our global audience online. Please share, like, retweet Geneva Summit posts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, along with the hashtag Geneva Summit 2022. You can watch and share all the videos on our Geneva Summit YouTube page. Follow